Hey everybody, it's Pete. Good morning. Thanks so much for joining me today. Welcome to today's episode of Stocks for Breakfast. We have a lot to talk about. We're going to do a deep dive into Apple charts today. They announced something yesterday that they haven't had in a while, which is they're allowing people to go into the box and start working on it. And it caused the spike in the stock price yesterday. So we're going to keep an eye on it today. We're going to do a little bit of a breakdown. But I also want to work through, I want to give you a heads up on something new that we started. Now, if you remember, if you were part of yesterday's video, we asked you to post comments below the video for something new we're going to be doing, which was a new series called Working the Charts. And it was kind of fun. So I just want to work everybody over. I just want to make sure everybody sees it here. You can actually see it was last night. It was roughly 40 minutes. So it was kind of fun. So what I want you to do after this video is done, I have a link in the description to rewatch that replay. We went over probably, I think, about 10 or 15 charts. So we're going to actually go over that. We're going to probably do that once or twice a week. It was a lot of fun seeing what stocks that you called out. But I think one of the most interesting things about some of the stocks that were called out last night had absolutely no order flow. It was super interesting to be watching ideas, people that were really looking to commit capital to some of these ideas that had zero order flow. So I thought that was kind of interesting, which actually I want to bring up somebody in our community. I want to just give you an idea of what the power of order flow is. This is somebody who's been in our community now for about 3 weeks. And I just want to really have you understand why I keep bringing up order flow, why I mentioned order flow at the top of this call. And Dave actually just started with us a couple of weeks ago. And one of the things that we also do is we give everyone custom scans in TradeStation or Thinkorswim for understanding how to stack the order flow so that the software just literally hands you the best ideas during the day after you understand how to find those trades. So I want to be clear. There's two different parts of setting up the trade. There's first understanding the edge, which means you understand how to spot order flow in the first place. But then in the boot camp, we actually take that a step further, which is then you take your stocks and put them into your trading platform. And then you set your trading platform up a certain way where as the day is unfolding, obviously we're talking about day trading and swing trading, the best of the best ideas float to the top of your list. And then it's really, this is why we say trading's easy. You just kind of sit back and you're just looking for your entries after the market opens. So this post, I don't know if you want to take a snapshot of this. It's actually pretty exciting to see what he wrote. All I can say is, wow, what a great way to find good stock. So I want you to think about this. It's really important. The first part is understanding order flow and how to set up the edge. But the second part is just as important, which is then putting those stocks into your software. And then today's order flow, this week's order flow needs to match that longer term order flow. It's kind of a really powerful 1-2 punch where you have the edge, you find ideas that match the edge, then you put them into your software and the best ideas just kind of float to the top. So it was really fun to see Dave have that kind of reaction. And he's only been in the community for a couple of weeks now. I also want to point out something. If you've been, let me head on back over to the charts here. If you've been watching the markets and you've been paying attention to Tesla, let's talk about Tesla for a second, all right? Tesla actually rolled over and then rallied hard for 2 days. It's actually up another $14 over the last 2 days. We get a ton of questions about price patterns. We get a ton of questions about forecasting price action. And on Monday at about 11 o'clock in the morning, and again, this is all educational stuff. I just want to give you an insight that it's available. On Monday, we actually did a live stream. Actually, you can see and talking about Tesla stock is a short squeeze coming. Now, the video is only 50 seconds, but spot on when you understand how to read order flow, when you understand specific price action, how you start to stack the argument, some really amazing ideas just absolutely unfold. And this was Monday at 11 o'clock in the morning where we said a Tesla short squeeze was coming. We gave the exact price action of what happened. And now since then, Tesla is up over 100 points since we called the short squeeze and it broke that bottom. So that link is actually in the description as well. So there's two links for you to click in the description. One of those links is the working the charts from last night. And by the way, thank you for everybody who posted ideas in the comments. And the second one is the Tesla short squeeze video. You definitely want to watch that Tesla short squeeze video because I did a deep dive into what to look for, why it happens, and then ultimately how to trade it after it happens. All right. So we got a lot to talk about. We're going to dive into Apple in just 1 second. So stick around. Be back in just 1 second. Okay, so as with everything that we do here, it's for educational purposes. It's up to you to make the final decision. I've made it my mission to help you make better decisions. All right, so we're going to do a deep dive into Apple. We're also going to talk about Bitcoin. We're going to do a sector rotation into some tech stocks that are strong, but there's a sector that is kind of near the bottom that has some stocks that are breaking out and showing some bullish order flow, even though they're not moving up the sector rotation sheet. So when we get into the sector rotation sheet, and we start to break it down, consumer cyclical is actually at the top. Technology has been there for a couple of weeks. Hopefully you've been watching tech stocks with us. But this down here, number 8, healthcare stocks, they have actually been pretty interesting over the last 2 days, where they're kind of, some of them are breaking out. Some of them are just coming off the bottom and starting to see a little bit of bullish order flow. So I'm going to point out a couple of healthcare stocks as well. Some of the other stocks that we've been watching, ChargePoint, EVGO, Blink, still pretty volatile. I'd like to see them calm down a little bit to have a little bit more, a little bit less heart palpitations with those big moves back and forth. I want to see a little bit better foundation underneath the order flow. I just want to say hello to a couple of people. Minvai, good morning, pal. Always a great time to see you. Anthony Shacker, thanks so much for being in the boot camp with us, Anthony. Really appreciate it. Let's see. I use Thinkorswim. I'm thinking of switching to TradeStation before joining the boot camp. Do you get level 2 quotes on TradeStation? Yes, you do. Yep, absolutely you do. It's just a question of pulling that up on the app in TradeStation. And by the way, we have a ton of training inside of our private forum for both Thinkorswim and for TradeStation. We get a lot of questions when new members come into the boot camp. Can you help me set up my platform? The members of our community have written custom scripts. I've written custom scripts for both TradeStation and Thinkorswim. So if you become a member of the boot camp, we have all of that set up for you. All you have to do is download it and then put it into your platform. If you want to learn about the boot camp, click the link below the video. I'd love to see you on the other side. It's 30 days of hanging out with just the most amazing people. So we're going to head on over to the charts. We're going to start out with Apple today, and we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into Apple because of the news actually that came out on Apple yesterday. So we're going to actually pull up the chart, and interesting that now the news was out that you're going to be able to work on your Mac using Apple parts, which I think is fascinating. So you see the stock got a bounce yesterday. It's up a little bit more, but we want to go in and we want to work the charts and see whether or not it's actually a pretty good idea now. That's the big thing. Now, if you've been trading Apple with us, or especially if you've been in the boot camp with us, 150 has kind of been a magnet. It really has gotten above and pulls back, gotten above and pulls back. So now we're kind of just dancing above that 150 level. And now we have the start of order flow. But I want to give you a little bit of a suggestion based on our experience trading Apple, especially in 2021. In 2020, prior to the stock split last year, the stock was on fire. It was just amazing. It was like you got long and it just went up. Felt like it went up every day. That hasn't been the case this year. It's kind of, I don't know if I'm going to say it's kind of like a maturing company. If you've ever watched all the old stuff about Apple and how they were fighting Big Blue and the man and all that kind of stuff. Well, Apple's now become the man, where it's kind of a much more mature company. So we're not seeing the consistent day-to-day volatility or the momentum where we go well bid and then well bid and well bid again. And again, if you're new to the channel, absolutely subscribe so you get updates like the video that we did last night. And if we're providing value, do me a favor, smash that like button. It would mean a lot to me. But what we're saying is with well bid means higher highs and higher lows. So over here is essentially what we're talking about. That's what well bid means. Now, we're not seeing that with too much frequency. You can see that we're actually kind of going into trading ranges, and once in a while after earnings, we're kind of bouncing. So what I'm trying to get across here is, what is the proper way to trade Apple right now without going out of your mind, pretending in your head that it's one of those momentum stocks that it used to be, because quite frankly, it's not. So what we're doing is we're pulling out a little bit more in Apple, and we're zooming out, and we're using the weekly charts. So you can see here, the picture is actually a little bit cleaner on the weekly charts in Apple. And if we start even here from last year, you can see that it's actually much, much cleaner to work the charts. So if we're working it on Apple and doing technical analysis, you can see on the weekly chart, a lot of stocks obviously rallied last year, but now we're into 2021. We know now, right, if you're watching the channel as often as possible, that you start to draw your lines and work the box, right, which the SPY. We'll get into the SPY in a second. So on the weekly chart of Apple, you can see that the box is pretty wide. We've actually stayed in this window where it's not a downtrend anymore by any stretch of the imagination, but the uptrend has really been a week-to-week kind of thing and not so much a day-to-day kind of thing. So what I'm doing, what I'm leaning on a little bit more in Apple, is I'm using the weekly charts with the same kind of patterns and order flow that I typically use on the daily charts. So now Apple is actually getting up to that level again where, and I'm going to zoom this out a little bit, because once we broke this, this is no longer valid now, and we have to redraw the trend line. So remember that once you get up to a level, I'm actually going to make this a little bit bigger for you. Once you have the trend line and you draw the box, if it breaks to the upside of the box again, then you have to you have to work the chart again. So you can see we worked it again. So now technically it's broke here and it's still stuck in this box. So even though Apple had a really good day yesterday, some really good news, we now need to see, does that get sustained? Does that order flow remain? And is that a good enough story that if we want to buy Apple's future cash flows, can it punch through to new highs? Can smart money have that decision of, okay, that's great news, and people being able to go into their max now is going to change shareholder value? I personally don't think so, but we're going to let the charts. There might be a different catalyst coming out, but right now that's the right price. So what I'm looking for is, you can see now, and if you know the language of what we talk about, Apple has had a few melted candles, a melted candle for 5 days, another 5 days, another 5 days. So that means that Apple has had 3 weeks of indecision. Melted candle means it traded here, did all this trading, and opened and closed near the same place. You might know that as a doji type candle. I prefer to use stuff that's visual, because if you can think about a candle and that body melts, that's why we call it a melted candle. But then you take it a step further, that melted candle, the very act of the fact that it traded all over the place and then ended almost opening and closing at the same place, that literally means indecision, because all those trades happened and it basically got back to where it started. So we had 3 weeks of indecision in Apple. This week is the first time now in a while, after 3 weeks, that Apple has gone well bid. So you can actually say that Apple pushed for 3 weeks. So you can see here a bullish. Let me zoom this out a little bit so it's really clear. We have a bullish U-turn here after 4 weeks of well offered, a bullish U-turn, which is a momentum reversal, into well bid, well bid, well bid, and then a couple of melted candles. So we actually had a bearish order flow, a reversal candlestick, which was a weekly candlestick. So bearish, reversal, bullish, pause. So now today, this week, which is now Thursday, is the first time that Apple is gone well bid in 3 weeks. So now the story in Apple has a little bit of a catalyst, but we have those all-time highs just above, maybe $4 away. So what we're looking for, remember, we're mapping everything out. Right now, we want to see Apple finish this week strong. So new order flow comes in, it holds it up there. Then, again, now, if you're part of our community, it's just such a big thing, scripting out your success, scripting out, if this happens, then I know exactly what I plan to do. Next week, we want to see Apple come back and prove to us that the order flow is still here, and go well bid next week and take out those 157 level. So you see how we're working the charts in Apple. So until that happens, maybe you go in with a smaller position looking for the feedback. If it rolls over, no big deal. It was just an initial piece. If it pops through, goes well bid on the weekly chart and holds that level, now we have feedback that says smart money, all those research analysts, all those deep pockets have stepped up and believe that the current news on Apple has legs, as we call it in the community, and increases shareholder value. So it's worth it for us to buy those future cash flows. So it's not a question whether Apple's going to have cash flow or not. It's, does this price matter in the shareholder value of what we're buying going forward? So that's how we're breaking down Apple. So the biggest tip I want to give you on that is I'm working Apple on the weekly chart, not the daily chart, because it doesn't have that consistent push and pause like it did, let's say, back in the day. All right, so it's kind of a little bit of a behind the scenes on shifting, using the strategy of order flow, but shifting it a little bit to a different time frame. So now we'd be using the monthly and the weekly charts as opposed to the daily and the weekly charts to come up with how we read the tape and read the order flow. And these are the kind of little things that you need to learn how to adjust. We're not changing the order flow. We're just changing the picture of how we're watching it based on the way the stock is trading. And quite honestly, we have a lot of people who watch us and a lot of members in our community who are swing traders. You have a full-time job and you can't watch every daily candlestick. You're not going to watch it intraday. This is probably the easiest way to do it, where you're kind of taking yourself away from being glued to the screen, which quite honestly, a lot of people come into the boot camp just to learn how to do that. Show me how to do this without needing to look at my quotes every 5 seconds. Doing this kind of adjustment based on your objectives, based on your goals, based on your personal lifestyle. Maybe you don't even want to be sitting at a screen all day. So these little adjustments are the kind of stuff that we talk about in our coaching calls. I wanted to share that with everybody today. So that's how we're working the charts in Apple. I want to talk about the daily chart now in the SPY because it's kind of important. We've been talking about this all week. And if you remember, we keep talking about working the charts, right? So again, if you want to watch the working the charts or the Tesla video, click down below the video. I left the links in there for you. Very easy. You just click over on that. So you can see now the SPY, as we mentioned coming into this week. And again, I want to get back into patterns. We rallied hard for 5 weeks. This pattern right here is one of the top patterns that I keep telling everybody about here, as well as in our community. A bullish order flow with 2 well-offered candles. So lower lows, lower highs into an inside candlestick. So you push up, you pull back, 2 well-offered candlesticks, then you go into an inside candlestick. That is one of my favorite patterns now because we're buying the order flow. We're looking for the order flow to step back up and see that move back to the upside. But the inside candlestick gives us a way to manage risk in a super identifiable way. So we get questions all the time, why an inside candlestick? And if you really think about it, an inside candlestick is a breakout pattern. It just happens to be one candlestick. So we have 3 different pieces of this. Now, again, I'm just giving you a little tiny piece of what we do in the boot camp, but I want you to be able to start visualizing what are the reliable setups that you personally use that you know they're kind of like your go-to setup. When that unfolds, you take that trade with absolute conviction because it's right there. It's lining up perfectly. So push up for 5 weeks in bullish order flow, pulled back 2 days, well offered. 3rd day goes into an inside candlestick, and then we're looking to trade out of that as a breakout. So we actually had 3 days out of that, so pretty good cash flow. We banged our head right up against all-time highs, and now we've actually paused again. So right now, the big picture in the SPY is kind of in that potential change of trend zone where we're still stuck, as you can see here in this box. So today's a really interesting day. We're actually up today. So now we're setting up as a breakout again, coming out of yesterday's, let's call it a pause. Yesterday, we had a lot of coffee in the boot camp and talked a lot about there's not that much going on. We have to go very stock specific. If we work our way up the stock market power pyramid, which there's a video for that in the description as well, now you know that we're going sector specific, industry group specific, and ultimately stock specific. So pretty darn cool that now we're noticing the market and our tape reading of the market and working the charts has now affected our position sizing. That's pretty cool because if you remember, there's 3 different things to work on, 3 pillars that we teach in the boot camp: stacking the order flow, reading the tape, which we just did with working the charts, and the last part is reversing risk. Reversing risk means that you actually have the right position size based on the quality of the order flow and based on how you read the tape. And tape reading, remember, you want to write this down. Tape reading, we call it building an argument, but really tape reading comes down to one thing. How close to the optimal entry are you buying? That's really what it comes down to, but you obviously need to understand how to identify the optimal entry. So once you understand the perfect entry, and as we do in the boot camp, you need to understand the profit maximizer, which is learning how to hold those winning trades as long as possible. We have a complete training on the profit maximizer, obviously in the boot camp. I can't do that here. Again, click the link if you learn about the boot camp, see if it's for you. But my point is, now that we've identified that the market's in a box, and if it breaks down, we're still probably going to be a little bit more cash flow trading as opposed to looking to build positions. So just do me a favor. Could you do me a favor? Type in the chat. Do you understand what we're talking about? Do you understand that it's so much more than I just want to be a buyer of a stock because I saw a headline last night, right? Again, it's only three things. It's not complicated. As a matter of fact, it's pretty simple. It's, can I spot the smart money? Where am I right now to the optimal entry? And then how do I hold this for the biggest profits? It's really that simple. You just need to understand how to read it on the charts. All right. I just want to answer a couple of questions here. And by the way, please do me a favor, smash that like button and leave a comment below the video if you have any questions. Let's see. What is your criteria for snapback trades? That's the $1 million question. Snapback trades are by a mile our most favorite loved pattern right now in the boot camp, but unfortunately, I have to save that for members of the boot camp. I can't. The snapback trade is producing winner after winner after winner right now on the next day. I can't give that criteria out on social media. You have to be a member of the boot camp to get the snapback trade. Sorry about that. I have to protect the members of the boot camp. Anthony, do you have preference for TradeStation or Thinkorswim? You know, that's actually a very interesting question. I've been using TradeStation for years. However, and I have all the scans and everything for everybody for the watch list for TradeStation. Probably half of our community uses Thinkorswim. And we also have a bunch of scripts for Thinkorswim as well. So, Anthony, I wouldn't say I personally have been using TradeStation for a long time, and I'm just comfortable with it. But I will tell you, a lot of members of our community, probably more than half the community, use Thinkorswim. And like I said, you come into the boot camp, we have all those custom scripts for you as well, and we'll show you how to use them too. So I don't really have a preference. I just happen to have been using it for a while. They're both really, really good platforms, though. Let's see. Oh, thank you so much, Top Dog. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so I want to get now into some more ideas. Are options trading part of the strategy in the boot camp? So that's actually a really good question, Rex. We actually have an options channel if you're a member of the boot camp. I don't teach options, but let me just show you. I'll give you a little bit of a sneak peek into our community. So you can see we have a ton of stuff going on during the day, and you can see we actually do have an options channel in here. Let me actually make that a little bit bigger so you can see it. So you can see actually here that options is a big part of the conversation in the boot camp. But I want to be clear, we're stock trading pro, so I'm not teaching options. The options channel is if you're a part of the boot camp. We have opened that up to members of the boot camp to use our strategy of order flow and take those options trades using the same thing, which a lot of people do, quite honestly. Some members have smaller accounts and they prefer to trade that. We are going to actually, ironically, kind of an announcement right now. We're stock trading pro, but we are actually opening. I'm very proud to say we're opening options trading pro next month. Actually, we're going to be launching our first training for options trading pro in December, and then we're launching an options trading pro membership in January. So it's actually good timing for that to be asked. So anyway, I want to go over some ideas for today. Obviously, you guys are here with me. It's 7:30 in the morning. By the way, I can't even begin to tell you how much I appreciate that you're spending 7:30 in the morning with me and you're coming back and we're able to have this conversation and really build this bond. I know it's through video, but we can kind of feel like we know each other. I just want you to know that I'm really grateful for it. And I just want you to know how much I appreciate that you're here. So I want to pay you back right now. Let's go and take a look at some ideas for today. Obviously, unemployment numbers are coming out today. That's a big deal. But let's start out with some charts. Let's actually go over to let's go on over to Nvidia. We're looking for follow through in Nvidia today. It's actually up $24 after earnings today, after earnings yesterday. So we're looking now for Nvidia open up higher and hold. Now I want to give you a quick heads up. A lot of these stocks that have been reporting earnings have opened up and kind of melted down. Home Depot this week actually did not do that. Home Depot actually rallied and stayed above for 2 days. But I want to give you a heads up on how to trade Nvidia today, Thursday, Friday, and into next week. So we're going to get this much higher opening Nvidia right now. Remember how we talk about reading the tape, trend lines, and all that kind of stuff? When Nvidia opens today, draw that horizontal line in Nvidia, and as long as it's above today's opening price, because yesterday's price action, that's all out the window. We're literally opening up into much, much higher levels for Nvidia today. Draw that opening price for today, and that's going to be how you read the price in Nvidia. If Nvidia opens today and trades above that, that's going to be our stop loss. That's going to be our line in the sand. If it opens up higher and immediately starts trading below it, we're just going to leave it alone until it reverses and get back up there. So we can actually use Home Depot as an example. And we're actually going to use Home Depot on the hourly chart the day after they reported. So I'm actually going to make this a little bit bigger. So what I'm essentially talking about is here. That's the opening price in Home Depot the day after it gapped up after earnings. Now, here's what's kind of cool about that is that if we actually drop down a little bit further, you can see that in the morning, it opened here and traded a little bit lower. And this is where you really start to get control over what you're looking at. It actually opened lower. And let me zoom that out even a little bit more. Here, it opened and then traded down. So like, okay, we're not doing anything. And then it recovered. And now for 2 days, it stayed above that line. So that's the line that we're going to be drawing when we take a look at after Nvidia opens today, which you can see 317. It is going to open way up here. Not quite at all-time highs, but it's going to open up way up here. So that's how we're going to manage today's price action, Nvidia. I also want to talk about, as I had mentioned before, we started to watch healthcare stocks yesterday, and one of the big things we do in the community, and I'll teach you how to do this, is you really need to understand how to analyze the sector. So once you understand that we are here and watching stocks float up, sectors float up the list, sectors float down the list. By the way, feel free to take a screenshot of this so that you actually have, you can follow this with me every day. Even though healthcare is towards the bottom of the list, we've started to track the ETFs, and we're starting to notice some price action. Now you can notice here, clearly the XLV is kind of stuck in a box. However, we have some price patterns today that we're going to take a look at in some healthcare stocks. And I think CNC is probably the top one that we're going to watch today. Again, working the charts, you can see where CNC kept getting up to this level and failing, got up here again and failed, and now it's holding above that level. So as long as it's above that 74, 74.50 level, I'm going to feel comfortable in that. Next, we're going to look at Pfizer. So again, this is where you start to work the charts a little bit, and you can see the little bit cleaner here, push and a pause, a push and a pause, a push and a pause. And now this pause is actually happening right at a level where the stock now needs to prove it's going to get through there. But what I love about this idea right now is this push, this pause, and this breakout right above that level. So following up on all of today's lessons, what are we watching now? What are we watching for? What are we watching for in Pfizer? Remember what we just talked about in Apple on the weekly chart? We wanted to see it go well bid, higher highs and higher lows, so that we got feedback that smart money stepped up for a second day. Yesterday was the breakout. Today we needed to stay higher highs and higher lows, and we feel comfortable looking to start building a position in Pfizer on the breakout. Another one that we're going to keep an eye on now is ABBV, which you can see here, pushed up, paused, and is now stuck right at this level. So this is a little bit different now. We actually have 2 weeks of indecision stop at this level. So now, this is where we start to really think through our ideas. Remember we said the third pillar is risk reversal. So now, based on the idea in ABBV, because it's been stuck here for a couple of weeks, and because we really only have maybe a week or two of order flow, it pushed up and has gone sideways. So if ABBV breaks through here, because of the order flow and because of the tape, I would be reducing my position size on the initial trade, looking for a push and a pause. And then during that pause, if it breaks out, is when I would get to my full position and add. Just do me a favor. Could you type in yes? Does everybody understand now? And this is something that I really want to get you excited about, like really thinking and acting like a professional trader. Even if you're keeping your full-time job, there's so much more than just I want to be a buyer of the stock. And if you could think about this, is it obvious, right? So is smart money obvious right now? I'll give you a perfect example. Getting a ton of questions, and we actually got asked about this stock yesterday, PayPal as well. Get people asking me, is it okay? Should I start to look at PayPal and all that kind of stuff right now? I want to start to buy PayPal. Well, let's think the trade through, right? Let's think like, pretend you're on in my office in New York City. We were at 457th Avenue. If you want to look it up, my firm was Keystone Trading Group. If you were in my trading office and we're mapping this out on the whiteboard, and you're like, hey, let's use somebody as an example. Let's say Barry Cannon. Let's say Barry and his beautiful wife, Elaine, they're in our office and we're talking about, all right, Pete, we're thinking about buying PayPal today. What do you think about us starting to build a position here? Well, we work our way through the 3 pillars, right? The first one being, if it was obvious, we would say, okay, then let's read the tape and see how close we are to the optimal entry. If we're still close to the optimal entry, then we'd go down to our position sizing, right? But in this case here, I think Barry would probably have a hard time convincing me that this stock right now is an opportunity to buy. There is no bullish order flow in this right now, not on the daily chart, not on the weekly chart, not on the monthly chart. In this particular instance, if we were talking about and trying to build an argument for PayPal right now, I'd have to shoot it down. Right now, if you're looking to buy this stock, you're basically just hoping that it reverses. And the way that we do things, which, gosh, I hope you get involved in the boot camp. You could learn about it in the description. There's no guessing. The way that we do it, the way that we pull up the order flow, we are looking for where smart money is already buying, already making commitments with real money in those deep pockets. All we're doing is learning first how to spot it. The second piece is, where's the optimal entry? And then the third part is pretty easy. How many shares do I get now? Do I go in with heavier shares because it's awesome and we're during a pause? Or is it, I love the idea, but I want to get more feedback before I size up. So I'm going to go in with a smaller piece on my first trade, and then I'm going to wait for feedback. And I'm telling you right now, this is so important. The better job you start to think this through, which again, order flow, entry, and position sizing, once you really start to think that through, you'll be amazed at how much money you save just simply by understanding how many shares you should have first and then look for feedback before you get more. By a mile, the biggest mistake that most traders make, whether they come into the boot camp or doing it on their own, by a mile is trading too big, too fast. We actually had somebody in our community 2 days ago trading much too big on their first initial trade. We kind of went through the entire position, and at that point, in that particular situation, we had a big conversation about reducing the share size so you can get your head back and you're not panicking on every uptick and downtick. And then as it moves in our favor, remember, we say this every day, we make money during the push, but we manage risk during the pause. So you really need to understand the difference between the order flow and the optimal entry, which is that tape reading part. So again, pretty easy to really understand. And if you feel like there's too much to do in the market, all I can tell you is once you understand order flow, everything else comes into place, because it's kind of silly to say this, but if there's no order flow, you don't need to read the tape and you don't need to look for an entry and you don't need position sizing because there's no trade. There's no other way to put it. So PayPal, there's no trade. So we're not talking about reading the tape. We're not talking about position size. And let's actually get to another trade. Again, if you watch the working the charts that we did last night, I put the link for that below the video. Somebody asked about PLTR, and the conversation centered around the stock is very polarizing. A lot of people love this stock, but it hasn't moved. The stock hasn't done anything in, 7 months. So right now, if you're looking for this, you must have a much longer term perspective where you're investing, because there's really nothing to do in this stock right now. So can you understand? Can you understand that trading is really as simple as, is order flow obvious or not? Because if there's no order flow, there's no reason to look for an entry. It really becomes that simple. So the main priority, again, whether we work together in the boot camp or whether you stay here, I got to tell you, everything flows from order flow. And I'm just going to finish up with this because this was a quote that I want to make sure everybody sees, just so you can understand that I'm like, this is not my opinion. This is somebody who's in the boot camp, and you can see this is from now. When you learn to stack the order flow, everything else just falls into place. So, look, you can tell, first of all, I love the fact that we're having these conversations every day, because I get asked all the time, why am I doing this? And quite frankly, trading's hard. I want to help you make it easier, and hopefully piece by piece, it's starting to come together for you just a little bit. but I just want you to think a little bit deeper. Again, doesn't matter if you're trading full-time or part-time. Think just a little bit deeper that, do I really understand what it looks like if the smart money is doing something? And just answer that question honestly. And then the next part is, okay, where is the optimal entry? Do I even understand what the optimal entry is? And then the last question is, okay, based on the order flow and the optimal entry, how many shares should I have so that it's the right amount of risk? How do I do risk reversal prior to even putting the trade on? So order flow, entry, and share size. That's really what trading comes down to. The problem is most traders don't understand what it means to spot the smart money, and then it gets a little bit confusing and you don't have confidence and you don't have conviction. So if you want to amp up your conviction level, order flow is the way to start, because you don't even need to ask the other two questions if order flow is not obvious. So start today. Just ask yourself, is order flow obvious? That's where we start with everything. All right. I put 2 links in the description, everybody. One to watch the short squeeze video I did on Tesla. The other one is to watch the Working the Charts live stream that we did last night. And if you want to learn about order flow and you want to join us in the boot camp, it's 30 days. It's the greatest investment you could possibly make in yourself. There's a link below in the video for that too. Have an awesome day, everybody. I have to head over into our boot camp game plan meeting, which starts in a little bit. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. If we provided value, smash that like button and make sure you hit the subscribe button so you get the alerts. So when we do another live stream, you'll know that it's coming. All right. Have an awesome day, everybody. Thank you so much.